Hey everybody, we are Vicetone. We're here in our LA studios right now. We're going to show you a little bit of how we made our League of Legends remix. It's called Project Yi, and we're also going to answer some of the questions you asked us on Twitter and Instagram.
So it turns out the guys from Riot were big fans of our sound already. And they came to a show of ours in LA, in Create. And actually a few days later we went to their office, which is amazing. It's the biggest and most beautiful office we ever seen. And they showed us around and what League of Legends is about. They kind of guided us into what they were looking for, and I think we had an instant connection with them.
For us, when we accepted this project, we wanted to make sure that we combined our sound with, a video game kind of sound, which sounds weird, but what we wanted to do is have it be a song that you can listen to without playing the game, but also it will work when you're playing the game. And for us, the Project Yi original track felt so epic, especially the middle section of the track with the voices. It had this really epic feeling that we wanted to keep, but we wanted to give our own twist to it. We want to show you how we did that. So we got a question on Instagram asking how we made the lead sound. Now, normally what we do is we tend to layer a lot of sounds together. We find that when you layer sounds together, they all have their different space in the mix and they sound different from each other. And if you process them together well with compression and EQing, that's when it tends to sound more unique. Yeah. So for this one though, this one is more of an exception. What this is actually a sample. There's no synth involved. What we did was we used this new Ableton update, which it updated its simpler device. Basically, and it's a 4K screen, so it might not be easy to see, but basically right here on the right bottom corner, it has a warp function. And basically what Ableton warping does,
it makes sure when you play a higher note, it doesn't get played quicker, but for the same length of time.
Basically what Melodyne does, Melodyne is an auto-tune tool that we use it a lot to make vocals more in timing, but usually more in key. The same kind of method is what Ableton now uses in the simpler device, because now when I warp it and I set it to tones and I play this middle C, this is the length, and even if I go 2 octaves above, it will stay the same length. So it will not go shorter, it will not go longer if you go an octave below it. It will stay the exact same length. And on top of that, it sounds different. It sounds better for some sounds, in our opinion. We found a sound in one of the acapellas that we got sent to us, I think a long time ago.
Yeah.
And we basically cut out certain syllables of that acapella, and just to mess with it, basically. We already had the melody done in the beginning, but then we wanted to get the lead sound right, and we wanted it to be based on the vocal. So we had these samples, we cut these samples from the acapella, and we ended up using this one. Now that is the one we ended up using. What we then did was get Melodyne on it, so it's really nicely in pitch. Yeah. The vibrato wasn't too bad, so we got a little bit of the vibrato, and then we popped it in the simpler that we got before. Now we put it on the Complex Pro warp mode, because for this one it sounds the best. Just to give you an idea of how different the warping modes make the sound, here's the original sample on Pro. And now I'm turning it to beats. Because it's made for beats, so some notes it doesn't even get completely. But even when I put it to tones, which is made for everything, any tonal, pianos or sounds like these, which have a clear pitch, unlike drums. So that's why we were like, yeah, that's not good enough. And then, we started going through the warp modes, and then Complex Pro sound like this. And we really liked that sound. And then Complex, that's the complex mode.
Yeah.
Compared to Complex Pro.
And we got a question how we make or how we try to make some different sounding leads than you hear in other songs. And what we do lately a lot is we just pick samples from anything that has a clear pitch, and we throw it in a simpler and process it afterwards. And this way you can really move away from the synth sounds that you hear a lot now in the dance scene, and kind of get a more organic sounding sound in your tracks, which makes it more unique.
So the second part of the lead, it's actually we added a support layer. We call it a support layer because it adds a little bit of extra beef to the sound. In solo it sounds like this. This is the original, and then together they sound like. It's hard to hear them together, but when you remove the support layer, so it's playing now. Now it's gone. It's yeah, you can hear that it's more empty sounding. Basically, what we did was the same trick that we used on the leads, the first lead, which is we used this the Ableton Simpler, but this time that we did warping mode off. And that created the sound we really liked more. So with warping mode off, it acts like a classic sampler machine by making the sample shorter, play it faster so it's a higher pitch, or play it slower so it has a lower pitch. And compared to the warping mode, this is with warp. And this is without. So we like that a lot better than than have the warping mode off. So this is basically just a classic sampler. We found a sample, we put it in simpler, and we went with it. And we EQ'd it a little bit. Obviously we have the Valhalla vintage verb again, which is brilliant. There's this little noise sound, just playing noise. It actually adds a lot in the mix. Without the noise, now with, it just adds a little bit of just high end, basically. And it feels like it's part of the synth. I can show you how we made it in silent. Basically, we have two synth voices, and the reason we do two instead of one is when it's one is just in mono, and when it's two, it sounds wide.
Yeah.
With the stereo knob here. We only have a little bit of decay and a teeny tiny bit of release, so it doesn't pop at the end. We used too many chord layers.
Yeah.
Usually we only use 3 to 4 chord layers, and with chord layers we mean just synth layers or sampled layers that play chords in the drops or any part really. So we got one layer that just plays this, which is, I really liked that chord progression where it goes from
yeah, it kind of enforces that chord progression at the
it just enforces a little bit with a little bit of extra energy. And basically what we did, we grouped them, we added a reverb, EQ'd it a little bit, added a sidechain, and that's pretty much it. A lot of it is just finding the right layers that work well together. So one of the samples that we did end up using is this drum loop. We added our own drums to make it a little thicker too, because when you warp it definitely, when you transpose it to a higher BPM, it definitely loses a lot of the punch, and we wanted to add a little bit more, so we added this. This is without our layers that we added, and then we added this drum. Basically just a kick drum sample, and we added these 2 snares. And that kind of adds more punch. Basically, most of it in the low end.
So one of the things we also like to do is put distortion plugins on sound that you normally wouldn't put them on. So we picked a string sound that's...
Oh, it's actually a horn sound.
Oh, it's a horn sound, yeah.
Yeah, it's a horn sound from Contact, Session Horns Pro. And it sounds normally, it's a great library. Normally it sounds like this. It sounds pretty epic, but we, you know, like Victor said, well, sometimes just to mess things up, we try to put weird plugins on organic sounds that you normally wouldn't think of. So,
Yeah.
you know, distort the horns. It doesn't always work, but we put trash on it and
Sounds really good.
a little bit of guitar rig as well, actually, a little bit of dry wet, and it sounds like this afterwards. And in the mix it sounds like this.
So Beto Keen asks us, how did you gain inspiration for this remix? For this one, we started separate in our separate studios because we wanted to have some quick ideas fast and see which one would work and which one would be better.
It's better to have 2 ideas than 1.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually had some different chord progressions than Ruben, and we ended up using them both. You had the idea, the chords in the drop, and then you can hear my chords in the main break.
The melody that I started with Victor's chords was this part. And then the same melody with my chords. And they both work, and it's just a very different vibe on both of them, which is so, you know, I really like that.
Yeah, and that's a great part about being a duo. You can like bounce ideas off and gain inspiration from each other as well.
United We Reign asked us, how long do you spend in the studio? I think he means...
On this track, probably, right?
Well, in case you mean that. This track, I think we spent 2 weeks on it. Probably less even, because we had a deadline.
Yeah.
You know, we only had I think we had 3 weeks max. And the reason why we spend a little, you know, usually if we focus on one track, we pretty much always get it done within a week. And sometimes you have tracks that are finished in 3 days, if we're really lucky, and some tracks take months if we're unlucky. Love Vicetone asks, we love you too, Jacqueline, we see you. What's the source of inspiration used by us? Well, as we said earlier, there's so many different forms of inspiration. It can, you know, sometimes it comes from a random movie we happen to watch, or a soundtrack that we hear, or
Showers that we take, honestly. A lot of melodies from me just start in the shower, then I have to rush out, dry myself up, and sing it in the iPhone or something.
What do you do in the shower?
Sing.
Oh, there you go. That explains the
I'm a
noise.
shower singer. So Stratus EDM asks, favorite lane/champion. We went to the Riot office and they explained us a bit about every champion, and Annie came across, and Annie is awesome because she's like a little teddy bear and she can transform it into a full-blown bear fighting machine. So I really want to have a picture with her, and I got it.
Aishna Cupcake asks, how do you plan on spending 2016? I'm planning to just sit on my ass and do all, to be honest with you.
Same for me. That sounds great.
Thank you guys so much for watching our making of video.
You can listen to the track in the link below. It's out on Spotify and iTunes. And that's it for today.
See you next time.